And just like that, we are live on the internet. How's it going?
It's good. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome.
I really, really appreciate it. So, you have a really interesting background, and you do something, because we've talked to, a lot of swim instructors, but you do it a bit differently, and your curriculum is a bit unique. So, I was excited to kind of learn more about it and hear from you, kind of, what exactly you do and why you do it, and so what got you into doing what you do?
I grew up with a swimming pool. My grandmother, it was our community where we went as a family to spend time as a family. My mom is the oldest of 10 kids, and that's where my cousins and I got to misbehave together.
Only 10?
Only 10. It was a small farm family, small, tiny.
Tiny, yeah.
Tiny. So that's where we got to misbehave with my cousins. So the pool was always the social aspect. And my high school, my school also had a pool. So I was a year-round swimmer, taking swimming and that kind of thing. So I always loved swimming, and then was encouraged through one of my former physical education teachers to gain more certification. And I did that, became a Red Cross volunteer, and I was voluntold. There's a difference between volunteer and voluntold. I was voluntold that I would become an instructor trainer. And so I'm an American Red Cross instructor trainer in water safety, lifeguard training, first aid, and CPR. And I've been doing that. At the same time, I went to school to become an English and social studies teacher. And we did aquatic schools when Red Cross had health and safety as part of their chapters. We did aquatic schools and had fun. It was aquatic bonding, and the kids learned, and it was an awesome experience. When I decided that education was not where I wanted to go, we looked at creating some training outlets, and that's where Upstate Aquatics came into business. Upstate Aquatics, we are a training partner of the American Red Cross, and we teach American Red Cross curriculum all over upstate New York.
Awesome. So I imagine your season is pretty short, or do you teach all year long?
I teach all year long, especially with the mandated Lifeguard Instructor Trainer review courses. We spend winter prepping for summer.
Gotcha.
So
where are you now, by the way? It looks like a classroom, but
I am in the American Red Cross of the Mohawk Valley, actually, in their conference room.
Nice.
Yeah.
So do you work in the American Red Cross office?
No, I don't work in the American Red Cross office. I had some
or facility,
We had some snow issues, so I had to rearrange my schedule and find a conference room where I had internet access. So
gotcha.
I came to hide in the American Red Cross, which I do on occasion.
So, what made you what do you like about the American Red Cross curriculum?
I like the fact that it's user-friendly, it's instructor-friendly, it's streamlined and progressive, so that if you take level 1, you can advance to level 2, and you're actually gaining some knowledge. Anytime any swimmer takes any kind of learn to swim class, they always learn something. That could potentially save their lives. I don't necessarily, if students aren't successful in a learn to swim level and have to repeat that level, I don't consider that as a failure. That's not a word that parents like to hear. I feel it's an opportunity for the students to reinforce the skills that they learned or didn't learn, and they can learn those through another instructor. So I think that's important. That F word, when parents hear failure, my kid failed learn to swim level 3, which is a common level to fail, by the way. When they fail a level, that parents take that personally, and that's not something to take personally.
So how do you move on from that?
I think that students are more excited. That's a stigma for parents more so than kids. Students, when they take swimming lessons, they're excited, and as long as they're in an excited environment where there's learning going on, and you go at it from a positive perspective, the learner is definitely it's all in how you present it. And as long as adults don't present it as a negative thing, then the kids are more apt to dig into it and enjoy the activity. And you have to make your swimming fun. Swimming is fun. That's what got me into swimming, was how much fun I had and how much fun I had, behaving or misbehaving with my cousins at my grandmother's pool. That's what we did.
So what is level 3? What makes it so hard?
It's a combination of it's the first level where you're actually learning how to put some strokes together at a rudimentary level, where you're introducing some rhythmic breathing. And there's 4 different swimming kicks that they're learning. They're learning reinforcing the flutter kick, learning the whip kick, learning the dolphin kick for the butterfly, and learning the scissors kick. So it's a lot of leg action. And once when you learn how to ride a bicycle, you learn the bicycle kick, and a lot of kids use that when they're swimming because that propels them on the land, so it's going to propel them in the water. And once they introduce that into their strokes, it gets a little challenging to undo that bicycle kick within their swimming ability. So it takes a little time to undo that so that they can be successful as they advance to the later levels in the Learn to Swim program.
And how many levels are there total?
There are 6 levels in American Red Cross Learn to Swim program.
Okay.
Learn to Swim level 6 has 3 options: fundamentals of swimming, fundamentals of fitness, fundamentals of diving, and swimming proficiency, I believe, is the last one. It's been a while since I've looked at that course title.
And what age readiness are we talking about here?
This is from 5 to teenage. The Red Cross has developed in this program, has developed an adult Learn to Swim level. They realize that not everybody's going to learn to swim as a child. So this allows adults to be able to learn some foundational and fundamental swimming and safety skills so that they can be successful with their children and be comfortable in the water. It's very interesting when I taught backyard swimming lessons, how many parents I would also be teaching. They'd be listening to the lecture of the child that I was giving to the child, and then they would ask questions and practice what their kids were doing. So people want aquatic knowledge, and this is an opportunity for teens and adults to be able to get that in a safe environment.
And you get a lot of adults? Is that common?
Yeah, that's more common than you would think. I live near Utica, and Utica, New York, and that is one of the largest refugee cities in the United States. So the city of Utica teaches 35 different languages every single day, written or spoken, in that school district. So as adults are moving here from those areas, they're not necessarily exposed to quality aquatic education. So it's those, many of the students that I've taught have been individuals from those countries who want that basic level knowledge because they see their child in a Learn to Swim class, and they don't want their child to know more than they do.
Sure.
Definitely.
And if something goes wrong, you got to be able to, take care of it also,
Definitely. In a safe manner where they're not hurting themselves in the process.
Right.
So,
Absolutely. Ideally, right. So what about, what do you recommend for under 5? So if you're under 5?
Under 5, there's a preschool program. It's for 4 and 5-year-olds. There's 3 levels of preschool aquatics, and that's geared towards that age range. It takes Learn to Swim levels 1, 2, and 3 and breaks them 1 and 2 and breaks them down into 3 levels so that the students aren't inundated with a lot of information and are able to learn at their own pace. The majority of kids that are drowning are under 7 or 7 and under. And they're drowning in 4 feet of water. So we want to make sure that we're definitely hitting the target area of students, of kids who are drowning. That population is definitely at risk. So we want to make sure we're meeting that need. And I think the Red Cross is doing that with that program.
And what about under 4?
There is a parent and child aquatic program that It's 6 months to 3-ish until they get into preschool. And it's where the parent and the child are in the water and they're learning at the same time, and gaining some basic fundamental skills in the process.
Okay. So when someone's looking into a swim instructor, for the American Red Cross specifically, what kind of qualifications should they be looking for?
Well, you want to make sure that any swimming class that your kids are taking is taught by a certified instructor, a swimming instructor, whether it be a water safety instructor or a basic swimming instructor. Both of those are the recognized aquatic credentials. A lot of facilities are using lifeguards in order to teach swimming lessons, and lifeguards have the skill ability to be able to rescue you and save your life. They don't have the knowledge to be able to break down the swimming strokes and teach them in a way that is necessary and developmentally appropriate for your learners, and that's important. So you want to make sure that you are learning, you are having certified swimming instructors teach those courses, so that you make sure that your students are learning those skills appropriately and have the best person teaching the content. If you're taking an English class, you want an English teacher teaching your class. You don't want a science teacher, because they may not know how to teach you that class. Exactly. So it's the same rationale with that.
Gotcha. Hold on a second. Hey, Mike, can you tighten this headrest? It's going to fall off. No, the headrest, the head phone. There we go.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you. I felt it slowly sliding off the back of my head. The back of my head in a second. Which that would have been our first time for that. That would have been new. So one of the questions you sent me was, what are some basic water safety skills that my child should be able to do? I assume you mean after lessons or in general?
Oh, in general. If you want your student to be able to know where they're at. And I remember them by drops. Does the D stands for direction. Does my student have the ability to change direction while they're in the water? R stands for rhythmic breathing, where rhythmic breathing is the ability to blow bubbles underwater and come up and take a breath. If my swimmer going underwater, coming up, wiping their face, or are they at the progression of, where Missy Franklin and Michael Phelps are? That's the whole continuum of rhythmic breathing, and where is my learner on that scale? O stands for.
So hold on. What's the problem with wiping your face?
That's at the beginning level of rhythmic breathing, because you want to use your hands for other things while you're swimming. Okay. So if you're thinking about a little kid when they're first learning to go underwater, okay, they go under, they come up, they wipe their face.
They don't like having water in their eyes.
They don't like having water in their eyes. So they're at the beginning level of the rhythmic breathing progression, all the way down to, am I blowing bubbles and I'm lifting my head up, or am I blowing bubbles and am I turning my head to the side to bring air in? Because the goal with rhythmic breathing is you're exhaling underwater and you're inhaling when your face is above water, so that when you're swimming, either any of the strokes that require rhythmic breathing, that you have the ability to have a consistent stroke and a consistent breathing pattern. That's what rhythmic breathing is all about. So where is my swimmer on that progression? O stands for over. Does my swimmer have the ability to roll over? Most swimmers swim on their front, okay? But a good safety skill, if they get tired, is to roll over and float. So do they have the ability to roll over, like you roll over in your bed every night? P stands for prone, which means front. What does my front swimming look like? What does my front floating look like? Most people think that they can't float. It's just that they haven't found the way that floating works for them. Everyone can float. They just need to figure out what floating works for them, whether they're finning or waving their hands underneath their butt to help keep their butt up. That's perfectly acceptable, as long as they're keeping themselves keeping themselves above water, because that's a safety skill. And S stands for back. What does their back look like? What back swimming look like? What does their back floating look like?
How does S stand for back, by the way?
S equals supine.
Okay, got it. There we go.
I'm sorry, forgot to define the vocabulary.
Yeah, S stands for back. I'm like, I don't think so. Like,
yeah, it's all good. It's supine. Supine means fine. Supine means fine.
Perfect.
Okay.
So on their back, S stands for back, and
what does their back swimming look like? What does their back floating look like? Do they have a strong back crawl? Do they have a strong elementary backstroke? Are they making progress in the water? Are they moving through the water at an ease, or are they sinking in the process as they're swimming?
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, we talked a lot about ages, 1 to 4, because for us, that's the danger window for when drowning most occurs, right? We all know. I literally have a video series I'm doing right now where I say once a day on video that drowning is the #1 accidental killer of children between the ages of 1 and 4.
Correct.
And layers of protection is the solution. And I'm going to repeat this on video every day until everyone knows it. In fact, I think that clip will be today's video. So yeah, we try and get that out all the time. And we talk to a lot of people who teach. You talked about rolling over and floating. The rollover and float courses that start from 6 months and on. Do you find students who take those courses do better when they get to the American Red Cross at 4 or 5 years old?
Definitely, they're more confident in the water. We don't have to worry about them listening to what we're going to say, because the pool classroom, if you look at it like that, the pool classroom is a very dangerous place if you don't have qualified people. So you want to make sure when those students hit that classroom that they're dealing with any kind of prior knowledge. That definitely helps them in that pool classroom. And that gives them the prior knowledge.
How many kids are usually in a quote unquote classroom?
The ratio should be 1 to 10, 1 instructor to 10 students. So that way that helps to maintain safety. And whenever they're teaching, whenever the instructor is engaged in instruction, there should be a lifeguard on pool deck at all times. That's an American Red Cross policy, and that's also in New York State, which is where I am. That's a New York State requirement.
It makes good sense. And does that number, do you feel that number should be lower for younger kids and progress up a scale, or 1 to 10 work for
1 to 10? 1 to 10 does work. It does work, especially if you're introducing some kind of flotation with them, whether you're introducing them to a pool noodle or a barbell or a PFD, a personal flotation device. Within that setting, that creates a safe environment for them.
And I think a lot of people like the idea of one-on-one classes, but I think there should be. I bet there's a benefit from having other kids in the pool for motivation, support, and emulation. And
there is because a lot of the learning happens ironically when I pull the kids out of the water and make them watch their classmates.
Sure.
What do you see that they're doing really well? What do you see that they can improve upon? Because I can say it till I'm blue in the face, but once they hear it from a peer, it's a totally different ballgame, because they're actually learning from a peer. It's called reciprocal teaching. But it's a whole different ballgame because it's coming from someone who's within their age range and they trust. I'm just the stranger in the room.
Right. And an adult, right? So
yeah, I'm the adult. Yeah.
Everything you say has a layer of mistrust, right?
It does. Yeah. Why is that?
I have no idea. You should know more, right? They should look at you and say, this lady has, at least 4 or 5 times the experience I have. We should probably listen to what she's saying.
No. It's all good. It's all good in this. It's all good in this generation where they're into playing video games, and that's an issue. These kids now are less physically active, so because they're less physically active, they don't know their bodies. So when we try to say when we say simple things like put your legs together and jump in the water, they don't have the association to be able to do that. I mean, I grew up in the country on a dairy farm, and I was jumping out of hay mows and doing crazy things like that when I was 4, 5, and 6. So I understood my body at that point, and that I needed 2 feet to land and that kind of stuff. Now kids aren't playing so much, so they don't have the association with their bodies, so that when it comes time to taking swimming lessons, there's a lot of that teaching. Let's learn to know what our bodies are capable of, so that we can be successful in the water. Because if they don't know what their bodies can do on land, that transition of knowing what to be able to do in the water takes a lot longer for kids as well.
So how long have you been teaching?
I've been teaching aquatics for 25 years. I've been an instructor trainer for 20. Okay.
So in the last, we'll say 25 years, have you seen a dip in athleticism in children?
I have. Because their life is more sedentary. I watch my cousin's kids a lot, and I see them on the the iPads, watching television, engaging in that kind of an activity. They're not outside physically, climbing trees, playing in the sand, that kind of stuff that we did as a bike riding, the kind of stuff that I did as a kid. So I knew my body and knew what my body could do, where these kids are learning for the first time when I put them in a pool, what their bodies can do. And that's, so they're coming in with less prior knowledge of what their body can do. And that therefore it takes longer for kids to be successful and learn to swim, because they don't know what their bodies can do.
I had wondered if that might be the case. I also wondered if, there was a possibility that, 30 years ago when I was little, we had, people, the adults of the time complained that, we watched too much TV, the Saturday morning cartoons. It wasn't, the iPhone and Xbox. It was, Nintendo and Sega. And, it was the same kind of argument. It was just different stuff, So I always wondered if, if there was an activity dip, or if, our television and Nintendo just got replaced with YouTube and the iPhone, right? But if you say it, I believe it. If kids have decreased in ability, I could see it.
Well, the amount of screen time, you're not.
It's gone up.
It's gone up. You're not carrying. I mean, when we were growing up, we weren't carrying a smartphone in our pocket,
right,
and can distract ourselves with a smartphone, or even just watching whatever. We had some downtime, on the school bus and that kind of stuff. But now that's not necessarily the case.
I wonder if there will be a pendulum back the other way. Usually that's how this thing works, right?
Yeah.
You see things go in one direction, it gets a little too extreme, and then it swings back the other way.
I think hopefully, but I don't think I think we're still in the middle of the swing right now.
Yeah.
Because we're still doing the research on the impact of what screens are doing to our children. So I think we're still on that swing. When the research comes out, we'll know better.
It will be interesting to see how different it is from, like I said, when we were young, we were accused of spending a lot of time, watching TV and, the cartoons, the video games, et cetera. So I'm curious to see how it pans out. It'll be interesting. We will have a whole generation of people who are really good at using technology and the internet, and, who grew up natively, using these devices. So, I wonder if the impact on society will be worth it in total. But back on topic, so you also do lifeguard training, right?
I do lifeguard training and lifeguard instructor training.
Okay. So you teach people how to teach lifeguards.
Correct. Yes.
Nice. And
Yeah.
Obviously there's a big difference between teaching lifeguards and teaching kids.
Yes.
Or maybe not, you know? So, you know, I always think that lifeguards are too young. I have a personal opinion that, you know, a 16-year-old shouldn't be responsible for, you know, someone's life, essentially, especially because there's a possibility that, you know, a mistake could be made, a mistake anybody could make, and something, you know, goes terribly wrong and someone dies in a pool. You know, the guilt and weight of that, I don't think a 16-year-old should have to deal with that. I don't think anybody should, but I definitely don't think a 16-year-old should. Do you have any thoughts on the age of lifeguards or the maturity level? Is that an acceptable age? Do they do a good job at that age? Am I completely wrong?
The 15-year-olds that I've supervised, you can take a lifeguarding course at 15.
Okay, 15. Okay.
15. The 15-year-olds and the 16-year-olds that I've supervised, they're on point. They know what they're doing. They realize the seriousness of this issue, and they're at it for the right reason. They love swimming and they want to make sure people are safe. And they did it because they wanted to do it. They didn't do it because they were told that they needed to take the class because they're a good swimmer. Because there's lots of parents that do that.
They weren't voluntold.
They weren't voluntold. They
Right.
weren't voluntold. They actually volunteered to take the class. So I think that 15 is okay. If you look at what we're doing, 15, 16, they're driving cars. That's a lot of responsibility too, behind the wheel of a car. And as long as they're in an aquatic facility that's setting them up for success, they'll be fine. Yes, there is a lot of repercussions on if someone drowns. I recognize the seriousness of that. I've personally dealt with that. One of my classmates drowned in my high school pool. She had a seizure. So I know what that's like to get back in the water after someone had drowned in that pool facility. But at the same time, if they're in it for the right reasons, they do their in-service training that they need to do in order to maintain the quality of lifeguards that they were when they got certified, they should be fine. We had an accident at one of the facilities that I was the director of, and I had 15, 16, and 18-year-old on the pool deck at that time. And the first thing that I did when I got the clearance for those guards to be able to open again was put those two back on that chair, in the chair, so that they knew, one, I trusted them to do their job, and two, that they gained the self-confidence that what they did was actually right and that they know what they're doing. The longer you keep them out of chair, the longer you keep them from guarding, the less likely that they're going to get back in and want to be able to save lives.
Why do you think lifeguarding is a profession that seems to be geared towards younger people?
Well, it's geared towards younger people. The average lifeguard age is 17. Right. It's because they have that summer off. They feel that they're the most physically fit to be able to do those rescues that need. But if you look at the statistics now, you're seeing a curve of the current kids in high school, college age, aren't necessarily getting summer jobs because of internships and that kind of thing that's required for college degrees. So you're seeing a shift of age where the seniors are retired, second career. They're going and becoming lifeguards and lifeguard instructors for facilities as they're transitioning for something else to do in their life. It's not necessarily right now the average age is 17, but I don't see that in the next decade being 17. I see it being a lot higher.
Can people lifeguard as a career? I mean, the average age is 17, but could someone theoretically do it? I mean, is there room in it to grow into something you do professionally?
Definitely. People are shocked that I was a school teacher, and this, being an aquatic instructor trainer was something I did on the side and weekends.
Right.
There is growth in aquatics. There are aquatic facilities being built. There's a dire need for lifeguard instructors and instructor trainers and water safety instructors and instructor trainers to teach classes across the country. Those are courses that not a lot of people, those numbers have dwindled since I first became a lifeguard instructor and first aid and CPR instructor and water safety instructor. Those numbers are down because, one, a lot of facilities they're mandating their lifeguards to teach swimming courses, so they're not looking for someone who's a qualified instructor. And two, the only places in New York where it's really mandated are camps. They need swimming instructors to swim test their campers for camp. So really there's that level of training was higher sought when I was younger than it is now in some cases.
Why are those numbers dwindling, do you think?
Well, in the Northeast, part of it is pool access. A lot of the schools in New York have pools, but when there's not a reinforcing of training by school administrators who don't necessarily understand the certifications of aquatics. I was one of them. I was a school administrator, but I speak both languages, as I jokingly call it, the language of aquatics and the language of school administration. So I know the amount of questions that I've been asked by school administrators. They don't know what they're looking for when they're looking to hire people. So they're not looking at credentials. They're not mandating credentials. So that's a problem. Most people think that this is, especially up in the Northeast, that this is a 3-month stint. That's all you're doing, when that's not reality. We're prepping for the summer all year long, getting people into classes, doing the training, doing the mandatory. In New York, it's mandatory that you have your CPR certification every single year as opposed to every 2 years. So we're doing all of the mandated trainings. That's what's happening across the other 9 months of the year.
So would you say there's a lifeguard shortage?
There is a lifeguard shortage.
And is that why, or is there something else?
Part of it is it's not recognized that it's a professional level course. The salaries, the hourly wages for lifeguards are not compensatory to the training that they need. When kids can go to McDonald's and make the same amount that they're making at a lifeguard course, why would they spend the money to gain a certification when they have to then pay for the certification and then get the job? Many of the jobs are not paying for themselves the amount of money that they're expending for their certifications. So that's a challenge. So until that happens, the lack of kids right now wanting to gain their certification, until that transition settles and we get some older people involved in that, there is a lifeguard shortage. And the other issue is lifeguard instructors. We need to. The American Red Cross has gone through, which I'm totally for, by the way, has gone through and mandated that lifeguard instructors, in order to maintain their certification, teach one course of record, and then take a course every 2 years to maintain their certification. And that course is taught by an instructor trainer. So a lot of a lot of instructors don't want to take that course. They're deeming it as too much work. So they're allowing that certification to lapse. So there's a decrease of instructors as a result of that training.
But you think that it's good training that's necessary?
I think it's good training that it's necessary. I think that the collegiality that happens with instructors during that time is beneficial. I think definitely the sharing of ideas, what's your pool doing versus what I can do. The opportunity to refine their lifeguarding skills, making sure that they are oriented to what the latest research is saying in lifeguard training. I think all of those are benefits for the lifeguard instructors. They see it as an inconvenience. I see it as a benefit.
Right. I mean, which makes sense from the angle that you look at it from.
Yeah.
So what does it take to become a lifeguard instructor?
You have to be 17 years old.
Okay.
And you have to possess a current lifeguarding certification. And then you're eligible to take the class. You have to pass some pre-course scenarios. You have to do an online 2-hour orientation, and then the lifeguarding instructor class is 22 hours, just under 22 hours, where they have to demonstrate teaching of the material to their fellow instructor candidates.
22 hours over how long?
It's a 22-hour in-person section. So however that's set up. I do Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday a lot as I travel across the state doing these classes.
Gotcha. So probably people get it done in 5-6 weeks.
They actually do it over a weekend.
Oh, they do one shot?
One shot over a weekend. Wow. It's intense, but by the time they've survived, I joke, by the time they've survived the class, they know what they're doing. And they're on their way.
So. That's cool. So one weekend and they're good to go teach other people how to be lifeguards.
Yeah, they're good to teach everybody lifeguards. They can also teach first aid and CPR with some additional online bridging. So they can teach. A lifeguard instructor is more valuable for a facility than any other instructorship because they have the ability to teach the first aid and the CPR components with additional bridging, online orientation to the materials. So that's a benefit for any facility who's looking to hire someone.
And these certifications, are they regulated? One of the questions that you sent was, as an employer, how do I know that certifications that I be given are valid? Is that a problem?
That is a problem. If you look at a lifeguard certification, it has the QR code, so you can scan it to know that they're valid. Okay. Because certifications, especially in New York, you have to have your CPR every single year. That's state health code law. So by scanning the QR code, you can validate if the course was actually a valid American Red Cross course, as opposed to someone creating a certification because they couldn't find a course.
Gotcha. So does that happen often, or people kind of fabricate their own certifications?
That's an issue. It has been an issue in the land of lifeguarding for a while. Because of how everything is computer generated. That is why the American Red Cross went with the QR codes once they went to digital certifications, so that the courses can be tracked. And me as a potential employer can validate, one, who taught that class, and two, when the class was done, and exactly what certifications they do have.
So to become an instructor trainer, what's involved in that?
To become an instructor trainer, you have to have, it's not the same procedure that I went through 20 years ago.
Right.
You have to have taught so many courses, and I don't know what the exact number is. And then you go to a training academy for 4 days of intensive aquatic lifeguarding training. and they do model practice teachings as they play the role of the instructor. They do model practice teachings as the candidates are playing the role of the instructor trainer. So it's intense. I've talked to several who have gone through it. They've survived it. But that's the requirement for the American Red Cross right now to become an instructor trainer.
And what about ongoing education?
Ongoing education. The American Red Cross has access to webinars that you can watch. It's important that you get to be a part of, as an instructor trainer, a network of other instructor trainers, so you have that collegiality aspect where you're able to ask a question that you may not know the answer to, or just run something past someone. In upstate New York, I one of the things that I did before they changed the process to become an instructor trainer is I mentored a lot of people to become instructor trainer. And so I'm on the speed dial of many of those instructor trainers right now, answering those questions, which is completely fine. Answering the questions, solving some problems. So it's all good. It's all good.
And it sounds like a good network. And I'm sure I know when I get quizzes and stuff like that, it keeps my my brain sharp, But
well, yeah, and you may dig into something that they're asking a specific question, and I might not necessarily know the answer to it, but it gets me digging into the information a little more to refine my skills as well and my knowledge.
So when it comes to regular people in their homes and their backyard and their backyard
Mm-hmm.
pools,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of safety equipment do you think people should have?
Well, the first and foremost would be a shepherd's crook. A shepherd's crook is a long pole. It looks like the letter J. And the reason for that is because your shepherd's crook being on the long pole, if your pool is deeper than you are, you can grab onto that person with the J hook and drag that person to the shallow end where it's safer for you to get in the water and touch them. If you're not a certified lifeguard, shallow water lifeguard, or aquatic attraction lifeguard, you should not be getting in the water that's in over your head, period. So by having that tool, you can drag the victim to the shallow water where you can then provide any care, CPR, first aid that they may need. The other issue is a rescue tube. It's a long red tube, and it floats 3 adults. It's about $50 depending on where you get it, and it's a great tube to be able to help individuals if they're having floating issues, if they're conscious, and they have the ability to grab onto something, they can grab onto that tube.
Nice. Which I think those things are important, and I'm not sure I know a lot of people who have those.
No. When I teach for the local area resource center, and in their backyard pools, those two pieces of equipment are what's part of their training, and the purpose of that is because not everybody is going to be a lifeguard. But if you're given the tools to be able to have those, and you're not putting yourself at risk, like with a shepherd's crook, then you can provide the care. You can provide the care that you want to provide. You have the desire to provide, but you're also not putting yourself in risk as well.
Right, because the possibility of you yourself drowning trying to save somebody is high. Right? It's hard to save someone. Yeah.
Yes, it is. And me as a lifeguard, that the rescue tube is the piece of equipment that I use to save someone. So if there by chance happens to be a lifeguard on your pool deck, then by having that there, they have the ability to grab that piece of equipment and then go save the person. But if you don't have someone with lifeguarding credentials on that pool deck, by grabbing the shepherd's crook and dragging the person to the shallow end, then they're in an area where you can get into the water and then, lift that person up to the pool deck, or do any kind of training when EMS personnel arrive.
I've been hearing more and more about people hiring lifeguards for private parties, for birthday parties, for events at their homes, which I've always thought was a good idea. I thought that was a neat trend that I've been seeing, is people literally hiring lifeguards to monitor their pool event, where without a lifeguard, we see these drownings with young kids so often, right? Where everyone thinks someone else is watching. You have that the psychological diffusion of responsibility that occurs, where you don't have an assigned water watcher, and dad thinks mom is watching, and mom thinks Aunt Joe is watching, and you have someone slip in unattended and drown. So I like this idea of having a lifeguard on hand for these parties. Have you been noticing this? Do you have any thoughts about that? Or?
I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah.
So that way there's one person who's designated on doing it. If you have, the rescue tube is mandated, and not every lifeguard has their own personal rescue tube. So that'll be a challenge, because they really don't know how to rescue anyone unless they have it without a piece of equipment.
Right.
And that rescue tube is vital into that. If you're having a party and you have young kids, that definitely is an awesome idea to be able to have that. I know if you have a lifeguard living in the house and you have a pool, many insurance companies will give you discounts on homeowners insurance because you have a certified lifeguard living in the house. So definitely, anytime when you have a pool and you have a certified lifeguard, you're creating a safe environment for your swimmers.
That's awesome. Well, is there anything else you want to let people know as we wrap up here? Any piece of advice or information or wisdom, or?
Making sure, definitely, you're in the fence business, making sure that you're having the fences, the self-locking gates, the 4-foot fences, and making sure you have equipment that's available to you on pool deck, so that if, God forbid, an emergency arises, you have the ability to act. I remember, having grown up on a farm, my mom, I went headfirst into a piece of farm machinery. And if my mom didn't know CPR, she has said to me on multiple occasions that if she had to stand there and watch me in that piece of machinery without knowing what to do, that would have been the worst time of her life. So by having those pieces of equipment there, you're helping to save the lives of those who are swimming at your pool and your loved ones.
It makes good sense. And I like the idea of, people getting certified to be a lifeguard just for the insurance benefits. And because it's just good information to have. It makes a lot of sense. So,
and if you have
more lifeguards because of that,
hopefully, and if you have a backyard pool, definitely take the home pool essentials class that the American Red Cross and the National Swimming Pool Foundation created. That course goes through all of the things that you should have as a pool homeowner, and it's very informative. I learned things when I went through it. So someone who's been in the business learning things as I went through it a couple of months ago, it's definitely a course to be taking.
Where can people find that course?
You can find it on the Red Cross website or the National Swimming Pool Foundation website.
And is there a fee associated with it?
I believe it's a $20 fee.
Okay, but not bad.
That's not bad. That's not bad. Goes through, how to run the pool chemicals, what your safety equipment should look like, that kind of thing. So it's good. It's good.
If someone 5 and up wants to have their child learn to swim or get swim instruction, how can they reach the Red Cross and sign their kids up? If they're in Utica, how do they find you?
How do they find me? They find me on upstateaquatics.com.
Okay.
There's a link there with my email address and my phone number, so that they can call me there. as far as learn to swim programs, look at the local aquatic facilities in your area, your local schools, WISE, JCCs, that kind of, they all have aquatic programs that are happening. I am a girl who likes to be proactive, and taking swimming lessons is definitely a life skill, and being proactive to save your child's life.
Yeah, we often say that swimming is the only sport you learn that could save you. Yeah.
Correct. It is.
Yeah.
It is, definitely.
I think it's pretty cool. Yeah, I don't see anybody, learning life-saving techniques playing football. Maybe, you never know, but maybe not,
Yeah, I won't be going there.
Yeah, maybe running real fast, but perfect. Well, thank you so much, Marrick. I really appreciate it. This was awesome. And have a happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
Yes.
too. And enjoy your Thanksgiving without snow.
Yes, it's going to be awesome. I'm excited.
I will have snow. You won't. So.
Yeah, lucky us, maybe. I'm sure somebody is happy about your snow, but I am not one of them.
I'm not one of them either, but it's okay.
Yeah. You should come down here to Florida. It is, I was outside in the sun before we started doing this. It was about now 80 degrees. So
I'm a little jealous as it's snowing this morning. Yeah. The roads are a little covered.
That's awesome. Yeah.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah. It's a great white snow. It's beautiful. I hear. I don't believe that. It's, yeah.
I'll send you some pictures when it's really beautiful.
There you go.
Right after the pristine snow in the morning with the sun reflecting off it. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Through a window, not outside.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, thank you, Marrick.
You're welcome, and have a great day.
You too. Goodbye.